Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you're from. So let's jump into the data for September the 8th, 2025. So this morning, we had a setup that we saw. Data's telling us most likely the low is already in. Um, so if we were to go back over and we were to just kind of set up a replay here, let's do this. Let's see here. Let's get into before the open. So this is telling us that we're trying to go long here. So if we flip back over to our data, we've got this range here, this 0.5 to 0.6. Then we've got this range out to here, 0.7 to 0.8. Now, days like today are a little tough. So this box measures that range, right? So that's it's just kind of the median and the mode, and you got a variance way out here at like 2 to 2.1. So this kind of tells you that days like today tend to potentially be a bit squeezy, earnings, news, whatever the case may be. So you have to be very careful. Something else you have to be careful of is that the way this market is set up, it really ever so slightly barely tried to go long right here. So this can kind of be a bit of a skewed day to day. You have to be a bit careful because we didn't really attempt to go long, right? This thing just decided to go have a one tick wick above this high. So what this really should be set up as an attempted short that decided not to go short. So if we were to go flip the data around to that, it's similar, but it's a little different. It's telling us now that we're looking at a 0.7 to a zero point 0.8, possibly 0.8 to a 0.9 with a variance of 0.9 to 1. So if we were to redraw this box, and I just realized this before I did this video, I didn't really pay that much attention because I just got back from just returned home from out of town. So let's reset this up 0.7 and we'll call it 0.9 to 1. So let's go up to 0.7. Going to be way up here. So the first thing we'll set up is just the next variance, 0.8 to 0.9. There's not a real variance. So the target this morning we were trying to get into was somewhere around 52. We were trying to get back into this 930 range, the way that we were setting up this hold where we couldn't really go sweep the low. So the idea was one of two things. We were going to try to sweep to come back down here and get these statistical areas and rip, or we were just going to push up here, try to hold to possibly get that variance if it was there. So this is the initial range. If we were to continue into that variant, oh, well, this is the range I'm talking about, sorry. But if we were to continue to get this variance, we'd be looking at 0.9 to 0.1, which would be between here and just up here somewhere. So the issue we're going to run into here is something I talk about a decent amount. So if we get in this 6 to 6.5 standard deviation level, I'm really not interested in trying to bring it back down. It doesn't mean it won't come back down. It just means I'm not interested, because for me, typically once we get up there, it tends to try to pull back into the 930 possibly and then continue up. And again, this is just statistics, right? It doesn't mean it's for certain. So the other stats that we have, if we were to go back up here, an 80% chance to come back down here and break this. Right? And then we have, let's see what our midnight stat was, about 80% as well, but we got that, right? We got this pretty early. It sat up here. Let's see, our high, we got that. Our mid, which is going to be right in here, we're looking at a 90% chance to go get that. 90% chance. That's wild, right? So you would think that no matter what, we're going to try to come back down and get into this range. So it kind of makes you think that if we get up there, you'd want to short it. I still wouldn't, just because historically, I see what I see, but it could possibly happen. Now, at the open, the interesting thing that happens on days where we have these statistical lower areas that we can't get to is that we tend at the open to try to pull into them, but we can't get there. The market gets held. And you know that we're trying to pull into them because you can look at other futures, right? So if you look at these other futures, what did they do at the open? They dumped. The NQ attempted to try to get down there. It couldn't. Even the ES had some downside this morning, trying to pull everything down, but the NQ just would not give in. So that tells me that it tried, but it couldn't get down there. Now, it still doesn't mean we won't get down there at some point today. It just means, for me, I'm not interested in trying to short that. So what does that mean? Well, that means you either sit on your hands all day, or you try to, you're interested in this long. So you either get in the long at the open and add as you pull back and try to ride it up. But even that is a bit tricky, right? And it's a bit tricky because you're already starting to break out, or attempting to break out here at 9:30 with this big rip. So trying to jump in that at the open to try to catch an add down here, it's possible to do, right? But you'd be looking at eating almost 70 handles plus, because you have the potential to even come further down. The statistical likelihood to break this low was slim, but it didn't mean you couldn't pull through these targets and have to eat 100 handles on the way down. So you had to be very confident in this long to get back into yesterday's 9:30 zone. All right. And that's part of the reason we're having a bit of rejection. It's just we're in this, this money from yesterday. We're in a stat high zone area. And so, or we push into a stat high area, right? We pop it, we pull back into 9:30. It keeps trying to pull back down. It just can't. So we keep driving up, and we keep driving up, and we keep driving up, right? So then we pull back into 9:30 again. We drive up again. This market is really trying to hurt people's feelings, that's for sure. So then once again, you're pulling back into this 9:30 range, right? And this is one of those days that you either have to be very confident in your trade to know that when you get up here, you're going to come back down into 9:30, or when you get up here, you're going to come back down to these statistical targets, because they're still possible. But this is the type of day where a lot of times I might not trade. The only thing I traded this morning was the Dow. And I don't really talk through my Dow trades because the NQ is where I tend to play the most statistical trades. But and the Dow stuff is just some stuff that I've been working on for like auto trading and stuff. So yeah, I mean, playing this would have been a bit tough. Right, the data's trying. There's just little tricky things going on here, right? These little one-tick wonders you get here, right? You get this sweep. I mean, it's very tricky the way this thing's setting up. But normally, for me, when you see a setup like this where we just sit in the upper quadrant of this 12-hour period and really can't get back down here, especially at the open, I mean, chances are this thing is setting up to just rip into stops and take people out. And today's a day where I did not trade the NQ. I did not trade the NQ. And we got up in this 6 deviation range, 6 to 6.5, which is my point of no short, basically. It's rare that I will take a short once we get into this range. So if we get into the variance area up in here to this 1, if you look at it the opposite, the way that we looked at it before, right, where we were looking at this data being a long, right, because of that little one-tick wonder here, there was a gnarly variance all the way up here, just way up there above 24,000. And this setup that's what it's trying to do, right? Harmonically, what it's trying to do is it's trying to build this setup here, right? And it's going to attempt to pull back into this, whether it does or not, we'll see. So you basically are moving up to come down and sweep, and then you make a choice. Do we continue down to build whatever pattern this is to the downside? Or do we continue this move? Do earnings come out and we pop in and above 24,000? Right? That's really what today was all about. At least that's what it seems. And so there's not a lot I would have traded on the NQ today. Some other people might have had better targets. You know, I know some other people that traded the ES on the pullback. They grabbed the long. Great. That's awesome. But for me, my trades were Dow trades today. But this is just to show some days, you know, not every day is a winning day. Some days are losing days, and some days you do nothing. And it wasn't because, you know, we knew there was a target up here. That had nothing to do with it, but we had started moving up. I wasn't interested in chasing it up there because if we would have, where's your entry? Let's just say your entry was somewhere in here, right around the open. Right? So what do? You get this move up. You get this move up and you get this pullback. If you're not taking profit up in here, well, this thing's going to pull back against you. Are you going to get scared and shaken out of it when it pulls back just to go back up and get another 10, 15 handles? I mean, that's not interesting to me. All right. So, you know, this is kind of what I've got for the NQ today. Nothing super special, nothing spectacular. You know, this side of the data was pretty good. This side of the data, not so much yet. So we'll see if we continue to pull back and hit these targets, then, you know, both targets, both sides were good. But because of the way we pulled back this morning and the NQ couldn't get down there, it seems to me like these might get missed. And if they don't get missed, then there we go. But either way, I hope everybody had a good day. I hope everybody either sat on your hands or traded your plan and your plan was successful. I will see everybody tomorrow.